Do, 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 do. Y'all know how I do. Y'all know how I do. Welcome back to another great episode of I Don't Know. And you are here with me for the new episode, starting the new year off right. I have a new guest. I have a very important guest. And I say that every episode is a special episode. And y'all know what I'm about to say, that every episode is a special episode because I am here. You are here. The guest is here. That's what makes it such a special episode. And today's episode is indeed a special episode because I am bringing the table to someone where they are able to sit down and tell their story. A few episodes ago, I did what was called Who's Writing Your Story? And I followed it up with I Am the Story. That enabled me to be able to give people the opportunity to tell their story. Today, I know each starts with a quote. Today's quote comes from Miss Viola Davis. It says, I believe that the privilege of a lifetime is being who you are. Once again, that is from Miss Viola Davis. Today, if this is your first time, is this your next time? I appreciate it either way. I thank you for my people in US. I thank you for the people in UK. I thank you for the people in Germany. I thank you for the people in Italy. I love the pizza, by the way. And for all of you people in those continents, go to the people in the continents next to you and tell them that they need to listen to Hell I Don't Know, because I need more subscribers going into the new year. I want to be popping on and popping by the end of the new year. And with every guest I get on, you follow me, you follow them, and we all can win. Now, I am about to do what I do best. I'm about to introduce my guests. And y'all know this gives me great joy to introduce people. Right now, hailing from the roads, not just any road, but the tobacco roads of North Carolina. Go ahead and stand up. Woo! Ah, Petey Pablo, my bad. Petey Pablo, you will not get paid for me using that, but you can help me support my show by me playing that. Now, she comes from the roads of tobacco, North Carolina, where Duke and North Carolina waged war. Dean Smith, Coach K, Michael Jordan, Jay Williams. They was waging war on those roads, and as there was waging war on those roads, people stood up. And as those people stood up, they became authors, they became actresses, they became models, they became activists, and they start to learn who they were. They start to figure out how their journey was important on the back roads in North Carolina. Today, I bring to you, as she picked up the shattered glasses and discovered who she actually was, I give you Miss Audrey Nicole. Miss
Oh,
Audrey Nicole, I appreciate I appreciate you taking the time to join me today on Hell I Don't Know. How are you doing?
I'm good, Teddy. I'm good. Like I never had someone make me like smile so hard, but Jesus, that was a bomb introduction, and thank you so much for having me on your show today. Hi,
I mean, I
everybody.
I do what I can, and each time I do that, everybody always like, who is he talking about? And I'll be like,
Oh,
I'm talking about you. What do you mean? Who am I talking about?
exactly.
So I start each show off with four things. A quote. I've already done the quote, which we were talking about in just a second.
Okay.
But I really start off with three questions. I've
Yes.
already asked you one, which is how you doing. You said you're doing good. The
Yes.
next question is, how are you doing mentally?
I am mentally amazing. From where I started to where I am now, I can say like my mental has definitely transformed a good 180. So I can definitely say I'm at peace. I am great. I am amazing. I'm thriving. My mental is really on an elevation of a high of a new level for me.
What do you do to keep your mental game strong and intact?
I can definitely say traveling really kind of stimulates my mental. If I feel like I'm overwhelmed or I am experiencing high anxiety, I try to either disconnect from my reality for just a moment and then kind of place myself somewhere where I can reset, refocus, and regain my mental, or I'll just pick up the next boat to some island and try to regain that way.
Peaceful serenity. I got you.
Yes, can't go wrong with the water.
Now, I got the two questions out of the way. I want to get back to the quote that Miss Viola Davis came up with, and I'm going to read it again so you can get your thoughts on it. I
Okay.
believe that the privilege of a lifetime is being who you are. What does
Yes.
that quote say to you?
It says being authentic, honestly, is the answer. If you're not authentic with yourself, how can you be authentic with other people? You know, you have to always live in your truth, regardless of how difficult the road may be, how hard the obstacles could be from other people that don't accept you. You know, learning who you are and learning how to live in that is one obstacle, a big obstacle within itself. So, you know, always living in your truth and living in who you are is one of the best feelings in the world. And I appreciate Viola Davis for that quote because I live by that now. You know, 30 years later, took me almost 30 years to get there, but you know, time doesn't have a limit on when that authenticity can come into play. It could be from as small as a toddler to as old as grandma, grandpa. You know, just as long as you're able to live in it fully and you accept it, then the world will slowly be able to accept it as well.
It's interesting that you said it took you 30 years to get there because that leads me to the first question, and it's how I start my show is the humble beginnings. Who is Audrey Nicole? Where did Audrey Nicole begin, and who was Audrey Nicole before Audrey
Yeah.
Nicole?
So to get into who Audrey is now, I would want to say that my pronouns are she and her. Before, my pronouns were he and him. So before Audrey, there was Ronald, and I was a junior. So I was my dad's only child, born in the early 90s, 1992 to be exact. And Audrey, who was Ronald, was lost, confused, sheltered, enclosed in a box. She didn't, or he at the time didn't have an identity. You know, he was so consumed with what the African American community kind of consumed him to be. But he knew that he was different. He knew he was different from the age of 8. He remembers watching his very first Disney princess show, which was Cinderella. And at that moment, he knew that he was trapped in the wrong body. And from the outside looking in, you know, those may say, oh, it could stem from his environment, or, you know, I came from a single mom who did remarry, and I had my stepdad that not having my biological in my life kind of could have hindered my life choices. And to look back onto that into who Audrey is today, I can say without a shadow of a doubt that that is completely false. A lot of things can stem from anybody's environments into making whoever they are the person that they are today. But from those life choices and from my mental standpoint, I just knew that regardless if I had my biological father or not, that I just knew I was different. So going through all those obstacles and turmoils and mental plateaus and rises and being depressed and suicidal really made me who I am today. So to say Audrey Nicole is resilient, she is purposeful, she is courageous, she is definitely humble to a default. She is powerful. She is a leader, a role model to those around her, those that are seeking help and or advice. Someone that can be a sister, a mom, an aunt, whoever. And I can also say with that for Ronald, he was definitely courageous as well. You know, things could have went left. I could not have been here. So I live by this motto that I'm grateful to be one in a number and not 6 feet under. Because there's plenty of times I wanted to be 6 feet under and end it all. But I'm grateful that I didn't. And I just kept listening to that voice in my head to just keep pushing. And, you know, the other side is on its way. Just be patient and be aware of what you want at the end of the day. So, yeah,
How
that's
did
her.
you choose the name Audrey Nicole?
I get that question a lot. And honestly, I had no earthly idea what I wanted my new name, my new life to be. And at first, I was going to go with Corinne because if I did decide to have children in the future, that was who I wanted my daughter name to be. So I was going to use Corinne Bailey, who is one of my favorite R&B slash blues singers, who is originally from England and Great Britain. So I was going to use that name. I was like, no, no, I don't like it. So I worked for United Healthcare, and I was working on the COVID line. And so my nickname was RJ, which stood for Ronald Jr. And so they kept getting it misconstrued with Audrey. So I was like, hi, Audrey. Da, 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 da. I'm like, that's not my name. And this was prior to me transitioning. So I'm like, that's not my name. And I kept saying, like, RJ, RJ. It's like, no, hey, Audrey. And I'm like, oh, okay, Audrey. Audrey sounds like my old name, RJ. So I kind of, it just stuck with me. So I was like, thankfully, my patients helped me choose my name. And I was like, what would kind of be a name and a brand within itself? And I couldn't think of a middle name to save my life. So I was like, I'm just going to go with a generic middle name. And Nicole is what came about. So I kind of use my name as my brand now. And that's how Audrey Nicole was born.
So you saw the writing on the wall per se, as
Yes.
a RJ, Audrey, Audrey,
Yes.
Audrey, and then as time passed, you started to see, hey, there's my name right there. It's been
Yeah.
in front of me the entire time, because I'm sure during the transition, as you was figuring things out, and
Mm-hmm.
those little notes that's being dropped, you don't see until it's
No,
time for you to see them.
exactly.
Which brings me to now looking back on your life and the past 30 years, because that's where we at with just your memories now,
Yes.
and your reflection time.
Yes.
Does it make sense to who you are now versus before you were defining you, with the quote that Miss Davis said?
Absolutely. 100%. And the reason why I say that is because as a butterfly, as I put it now, I was a caterpillar. You know, I was becoming myself. I was finding who Audrey was as I was growing up. So as I was becoming this little caterpillar, I was this caterpillar for almost 30 years. And then I kind of, you know, plateau and I hit a really, really low point in my life to the point where I snapped. And I felt like at that moment, my caterpillar kind of went into his cocoon. And in that cocoon process is when I started to realize like this is my awakening moment. If I don't do this now, I don't know where I'm going to be in the next year because I was mentally declining. I was severely being depressed and just masking again who I thought I was for the public, but that's not who I was internally. And so while I was in my cocoon from July 2020 until 2021 is when I medically started my transition. And that's where Audrey was forming. She was in her cocoon. She was molding herself. She was figuring out, okay, what is her name is going to be? What is she going to look like? What is her aspirations? What are her thoughts? Where is she going career wise? You know, all of those internalized feelings were being wrapped up and molded while she was basically blossoming into the woman that you see right in front of you today. And then once that medical clearance became a go, the cracks in the cocoon started to hit. And then slowly but surely, as time went on, she just emerged. And now she is this beautiful, vivacious butterfly that people now can be like, I get it. This is a person who you were meant to be. I don't even know who this person was before. I kind of wish this person was you from the beginning. And they are very grateful just to see the journey within itself. So being able to actually put myself in those quotes is very resurrecting. Like I love the feeling. It gives like a warm spirit inside, a warm, bubbly feeling also. So yeah.
So what you talked about some personal things, the darkness of it.
Yes.
What was the last, let's say, 2 years like for you?
Oh, it was like a black, dark, like I don't even know how to explain it because I was so in a daze, being that I was again masked to the public, that really nobody knew how bad I was dying in the inside because I never expressed it. I expressed it to my doctors and I may hint it to like my friends, but I feel as though at that time I didn't have no one to turn to. I didn't know where to go as far as getting the help that I needed to be able to overcome all of that darkness. But I say to say this, that everything happens for a reason. And looking back at it now, I can kind of laugh at it. I kind of thank my ex in a way because when we broke up, that was kind of when I mentally snapped because I had so much going on mentally, trying to put things of me personally in perspective. Like, am I going to go through this transition? Am I not? How is my parents going to feel about it? How is my friends going to feel about it? Like, how is everybody going to feel about it? But I never took the time to ask, how am I going to feel about it? You know, am I going to be okay? Am I going to accept who I truly am? Not worrying about everybody else, but I always put myself last. And so when I got institutionalized, that was kind of my awakening moment because most people don't know that I actually was getting ready to start my transition before I went to the mental institution, but COVID hit. So all of the doctors kind of halted everything. And I'm like, I can't wait. If I don't do this now, I I don't know what's going to happen. I probably would have like ended my life at that point because I don't want to wait. And so it was kind of a blessing in the disguise that we broke up because I was institutionalized. I was able to get a therapist. I was able to get a psychologist. I was able to kind of kickstart my process all in one. So at that darkness, there were a little bit of light. And then once I went through that first little bit of light, the light kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then in January 2022, I started my medical transition. So that was kind of the light at the end of the tunnel. It was hard from 2020 to 2022. It was hard, but I was patient. I was very thorough in anything that I needed to get done. I was persistent and I made sure I was on top of my knowledge every step of the way.
So what was some of your what has been some of your biggest struggles with the transition?
Having the acceptance from my immediate family has been the biggest struggle of it all because in the Black community, you know, we have always been conditioned to be a certain way. And anything outside of that bubble was just not the norm for us. So I didn't know how my family was going to react, being that it hit so close to home. My mom never saw it coming. My dad never really saw it coming. And I'm like, y'all didn't really put the pieces together because I've asked this question before. And I was like, I don't know if y'all remember, but I remember very distinctly. And I actually put it in my book. So in the excerpt of it, I was like, I asked my mom and my dad, what would you guys feel if I decided I wanted to be a girl one day? And I remember my mom saying that in her sense that she would disown me because she already had a daughter and she didn't birth, you know, another daughter. So she was like, I'm just not. accepting of it. And the same for my dad. I'm his only child. So in his mind, he was like, I lost my child. And that was a tough pill to swallow. And I had to come to acceptance that not everybody's going to be accepting of my choices or who I feel as I am on the inside. And I should be okay with that. And if I can live with not everybody being accepting, and I'm doing this strictly because of my happiness, then that would just build the strength and the courage to just move past it despite of. And that's what I did. I told my mom, regardless of how you guys feel, you can accept it or you don't. I'm still going to do it. I'm still going to transition because I know how I feel and this is how I'm supposed to be. And whether you would like it or not, I'm still going to be me regardless. So pretty much how that went. And my mom slowly but surely came on board, and I'm very grateful for our relationship. It kind of made us stronger now. My dad, on the other hand, that's another story. It's a process, but I also learned through therapy that as parents, I have to also take account of their feelings too, because I'm not a parent. I don't know how it feels to lose a child physically that is still physically here and then being somebody totally different that you don't even recognize. And I had to just sit back and take a bask of, they are human. They are going to have feelings. However, this is your happiness at the end of the day. You only have one life and you only have one life to live. So are you going to just sit and go through that, that woe it's me, sit in that low point of your life to please your parents yet again, as you've been doing your whole life, or you're going to take charge of your life. And either they're going to slowly get on the bandwagon or they're not. And so that's what I did.
So when uh, you have a question for me,
Do I have a question? I do. How
what's
is
your question?
it? Yes. So prior to the show, we talked about your child transitioning too, and being a stepfather and being a parental figure in a child's life. How did that go about with you, feeling wise? Like I said, my dad is mentally or might not be there at all. I did tell him I'm letting him grieve. So whenever he wants to talk about it, we can. But I'm gonna move on with my life. And if you want to sit there and grieve and wallow in it, then you can. But I'm always going to be here. But as like I said, a parental figure, how did that mentally go about for you? How are you feeling mentally about it?
So I can give you both perspectives. I can give you their side and my side.
Okay.
So when she was transitioning, he was transitioning. I didn't have a problem with it because it. I was more focused on the happiness, but I also seen uh, how his mother and father was upset, how his sister was upset because of that decision. And so from my perspective, I said, I understand you're upset because they upset because of the decision you want them to just jump on board with. But my stance was you also have to see the decision and the feelings that they have from their perspective. And so I said that you just can't all of a sudden just turn your back on them because they're not agreeing with you. You have to understand why they're agreeing with you. So a lot of times with these decisions, uh, it's it's automatically everyone's against me. No one wants to listen to me, but no one's really taking to encourage that the feelings from parents, sisters, brothers, uncles, cousins, nieces, nephews is just I want to do this and it's my happiness. Well, everyone's happiness is involved. True enough, someone's going to be sacrificed, but no one's actually thinking about the overall happiness. For me, I was always on her side, his side now. And I always gave him the honest truth. I've always told him the truth. So pretty much, I've always been the support system. I've always told them what they needed to know. I always tell them what they was gonna get told, whether they wanted to hear it or not.
Mhm.
So for me, I never really had a problem with it. Even when they came out to me, I'm like, okay, cool. Just make sure you bring me the moms, you get the daughters. So I always made it just easy for them to be able to deal with it instead of being like, oh, that's terrible. And so, I was always just there for comfort and just the support system, period. Because it's not my place to judge. I don't wear black coats. I leave it for God and for, the other side. That's my standing on it. And that's going to be my standing on it. So whoever want to live their life, I say, hey, live your life. Because as long as you're happy, I'm happy for you. Because if I want to be happy, I'm going to be happy. And that's what I told him. And I did all the battling against the mother. And I was like, look, that's end of the day, that's your child. Period. I said, I don't care what you say behind closed doors, but right now, she needs some support. When the door closed, say whatever you want to say. And when she called, don't do all that stuff because they're already stressed enough. So that was just me. But everybody's not like me, which was also bringing me my next question. What was your support system like? Because if you was headed to the mental health system, then your support system became the exact system that you needed and the people you needed to talk to.
Yes.
Sometimes the padded walls allows us to actually talk to ourselves
Yeah,
when we
it
need to have
did.
a conversation with ourselves. So, what did your support system look like?
At the time, my support system was my best friend, Latrez, and my cousin, Sarika. Those two knew about everything before any craziness going to the mental institution, all that stuff happened. So when it kind of kickstart, they were the first two that was on board, and then everybody within my circle kind of followed. So they encouraged me since day one. They was on board since day one. They asked what my pronouns were. They tried to get acclimated as best as they could. I did have to understand that my friend's been with me, for 15 plus years, 20 plus years, if not longer. And, my cousin knew me my whole life. So having to adjust to who I once was to who I am now, that takes a minute. At first I was getting highly annoyed because I'm like, I'm not that person. Stop calling me, the wrong pronouns, stop doing this. And then I had to take a step back. And like you said, everybody has feelings. Everybody is trying to adjust. Everybody is trying to kind of get on board as best as they can, as quickly as they can, because my transition hit like this. I ain't even give you time to blink because one day I was Ronald, and then the next 2 weeks I was Audrey. So I didn't even give people time to even process. I was like, look, listen, this train is going whether you own it or you not. So at some point in these tracks, you better you better get on board and hop on it. But they're still processing. Even my cousins, even my family, they're still processing, which I'm okay with. But my two biggest supporters is definitely my best friend and my cousin. They were
Well,
like,
see, I think now the difference is you understand that people need time to process.
yeah, hmm,
Because for you, it was more of, I don't need time to process. I need to do it because if I
yeah,
don't do it, then it's going to be tragic. And so
yes,
you started your train. And as
yeah,
you started your train, everyone that wasn't on it was just on the outside. They can only get on it whenever you stop the next time. But
hmm,
that's what I think one of the main problems is once it get the rolling, then there's no time for people to process.
yeah,
Which this is a I'm gonna move this question up, which
okay,
is also a problem within the LGBTQ plus community.
hmm,
And I've asked this question before: is it disrespectful to call it alphabet community? And I
yes,
have a reason for asking that.
yes,
So now, from my perspective, the reason I ask that is because every year there's a new letter added. So if there's something new added every year, then for the ones that's not in that community, we still see a bunch of alphabets. And if it's division in your community where everyone just wants to have their own alphabet letter
Mm-hmm.
representing their particular gender, I'd say, then
Mm-hmm.
for us, you're not giving us time to adapt to your new changes when you just
Right.
changed 2 years ago and now you're adding something new. So it's
Right.
hard for everyone else to stay updated, but then it's a violation for those who haven't updated to the new things that you updated to. So that
Mm-hmm.
goes back to what we're talking about. The world isn't having time to process everything that's being
Right.
updated.
It is. And I can honestly, at first, me personally, I thought it was very comical when outsiders that's not in the community say the alphabet community because, you're old school. I came from the 90s. So millennials and before us, we
I
only
prefer
do.
vintage.
Okay,
I
vintage.
prefer
Okay,
vintage.
okay, okay, vintage. Well, you vintage. I'm a little, old school. So, we only do four letters our whole majority of our lives. And then when all of these extra letters came in, I'm just like, from my standpoint, I'm like, okay, why? One, why we need all these extra letters when we already have these four letters? We don't need no more. But those on the outside don't, I guess I want to say don't understand, but all the extra letters are not just genders. Those letters are describing like sexuality or, maybe they don't conform to any of those, so they're trying to find, their own space within the spectrum also. Yeah, maybe I may not be gay, or maybe I may not be bi, or maybe I'm not trans. Maybe I'm here. Maybe I'm just like all, or, maybe, in the sexuality world, maybe I don't like certain things. Maybe I just, am sexual with the mind. It's a lot that comes with all of that. So with the gender and the sexuality, all the new letters kind of conform with the new generation wave. Okay, they don't fit in the stereotypical normatives of the community. They fit outside of the box. So yeah, you may have the ones that the original OGs, but now they got the new kids on the block. So
That's
we all trying to
that's
get with the
why
new
I
kids.
asked the question because
Yeah,
it's
it's a lot.
as the year changes, the different because it was the Gen X and whatever they want to call the new generations. As the generation changes, the definition of sexual genders change. I put it like that because everybody
Yes.
wants to have their say and everybody wants to have their different input, and so it's going to change again in probably 5 years
Hmm. And I'll be saying, hi,
because
that's my.
it went from being male, female, heterosexual. I don't even know what it is after that. I just tell everybody I'm a male, I'm a straight guy. So that's all I tell people. I'm like, I don't know what this other stuff is. I'm just a straight guy. I'm a
Yeah,
75 from 1975 straight guy. That's all I can
yeah.
tell you.
It's
So
a, it's a
all the rest of the stuff, I
I
do my research, but
I was confused. I'm like, listen, at 30, I'm like, what? Why we got
that's
all this stuff?
that's what our publicist said.
Right. I was like, huh? I'm like, listen, I'm strictly through the books, baby. It's this way or this way. But again, that's when you're so conditioned to being this way, you have to now break that tradition. Like, okay, it's not always going to be black or white. You do have this big gray area that has all of this stuff in it. And it's either you fit on one side, the other side, or you in the middle. And somewhere in the middle, we all got to figure it out.
That's true. Let's talk about thin skin. Because since we're talking about the different communities,
Yeah.
and when you're looking at the different communities,
Hmm.
there's a lot of thin skin when things are coming back, but there's some strong skin when it's going out. Do you think words hurt as much as they do when you're using them versus when you're hearing them?
Of course. Regardless of communities, they say sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That's a lie. Words do hurt. They do because people, especially if they're not mentally well, they take certain things to a higher level. For me, battling my depression and my suicidal ideations at the time, no one knew because I masked it so well. But being antagonized and being picked on from third grade into high school, those words really stuck to me. I mean, I showed it, but deep down inside, like I second guessed myself a lot. I, would internalize my feelings and I would be my worst critic 10 times more than somebody beside me would be because of what people were saying about me. Or, you know, I was this, I was a sissy, I was gay, I was a faggot, those type of things. I had to look at myself like, is that really me? And if it is, like, how do I be resilient to fight back these words? Because once you keep getting hit and hit and hit with these words constantly, it's this repeated cycle in your head. It's like a tape recorder. You keep hearing it and hearing it and hearing it, and it becomes your reality. And so, if you're a person that's just not prone to letting things get to them, kudos to you. Because I wish I was that person, just to let words just roll off there by my back and just like, okay, it's whatever. But those
It
that
takes
kind of, huh?
it takes work.
It does, and those I was very superly highly emotional growing up. Like I was very in tune with my feelings. Like if I was upset, you knew. If I was sad and I showed it, you knew. But when it came to like depression, I didn't know how to show that because I didn't know who to speak to. I didn't have no one to talk about it. And even on the outside world, being trans now, I'm very conscious of what people say or how people look at me because I just don't know. I always second guess, like, do they know? Like, what are they thinking? It's very a subconscious thing. It's very, very big, honestly. So, yes, words do stick. And if they don't stick, like you said, it takes work, but I think kind of crazy.
So let me give you some information. It's not what you're called, it's what you answer to.
Okay,
Because
I like
people
that.
call you whatever they want to call you. And
Yes,
as soon as you answer to one of those names, then
yes,
that's what you're answering to, which you just gave them permission to call you that.
correct.
Just like, for instance, if someone calls you Ronald, and that's no longer your name, but as soon as you answer to it, they're going to call you that for the rest of your life. Even
Hmm.
though you transition to Audrey, true enough, there's still family members that probably says, "Hey, RJ." I mean, because that's what they know from you growing up. But as soon as you give them the authority to call you barbecue chicken or potato pie, those aren't disrespectful names. Just so y'all know, I'm just coming up with those off the top of my head. I had barbecue chicken last night, and sweet potato pie is some of my favorite pie. Now, but if I guess, hey, don't
Ew.
you ever disrespect sweet potato pie like it ain't never did nothing to you.
It
Now,
become a sweet potato pie. That's what it is.
now, uh, talk to you like I do my nephew. I'm like, you ain't my nephew. But if the first time somebody say, "Hey, remote," and then you be like, "Huh?" They gonna call you remote forever. But if they call you, "Hey, paper," and you never answer the paper, but then say, "Hey, Audrey," you're like, "Yes," then that's what they're gonna call you. So it's not what they call you; it's what they you answer to. Also get that because the connotation that the N word has on it. It's
Hmm.
still a racist word. No matter how cool you want to make it, it's still a racist word. Or boy, girl, uh, as soon as you answer to that, that's what they're going to call you forever. That's why I came up with the quote. It's not what they call you, it's what you answer to.
Hmm.
Do you know what the plus means?
You know what? No, not at all. Not
I
at all.
appreciate
I'm still trying to figure out what the plus mean. I don't. And that's kind of sad being a part of the community. But baby, I don't.
ask when we get off, ask our mutual friend, he can tell you.
I will. I was like, listen, I've been a part of one, two, three communities out of the five, and that's all. That's all I know. I don't know none of the rest of them. I just kind of stick to my little bubble,
That's
and then
okay. because some of us out here don't even know what the LGBTQ, all the rest of it. We just know it's a L community. So hey, we good. We still think the plus and the minus mean and add and subtract.
Right.
So
Okay.
I don't usually talk politics, but I'm going to mention that the battle on Capitol Hill with the Same Sex Marriage Act, it came under fire in the last few months of 2022. What was your thoughts on that?
I feel as though, as people, we are so nosy to who people love, and we always in somebody's business. I mean, wasn't we just recently, not too long ago? It hasn't even been 20 years that they just approved interracial marriage. But y'all
20,
worried about, yeah, I think it was like what, 1998 or something like that, that they passed a law that white and blacks can get married, but yet y'all worried about two women or two men get married. Like, pick something else. Like, why are y'all worried about issues that don't involve you? I said, honey, because there's been plenty of people having babies out of wedlock, and they do a lot of things. But you listen, that's a whole nother topic for another day. Because maybe I can go into that. But I'm just saying, like, I think it's just pointless. A country as a whole, we're so amused to other people's lives and what goes on in other people's houses or bedrooms that we don't even pay attention to our own back door. So I was just like over it as a part of the community. I was just over it for those that are was going through that because I was a part of that community at one point in my life. So, at that point, being able to eventually marry my partner, that would have been amazing. But now that I've kind of transitioned over to the other side, it's like I now, in society standpoints, fit into the normative rhetoric of being able to marry, you know, my husband in peace and not having to go through that. So now being on the outside, I do feel for them, but I think they should now be able to still marry. But that whole rhetoric within itself was just stupid. I'm just like,
well,
let
it's
it go.
it's interesting because the Senate on Tuesday, December 6th, 2022, gave its final approval to a bill that enhances legal protections for same sex marriages. It's called the Respect for Marriage Act, and it also protects rights of conscience and religious liberty for conservatives. Knowing that there's an act that protects not just your community, but all communities for people who love each other and religious acts. Now, how do you feel going forward,
I
knowing
feel
that there's something to
I feel
protect?
great because at the end of the day, everybody should be able to do what they want to do when it comes to marriage and love. Everybody's beliefs, religions, their background, their cultural background is not always going to align. We are never going to always agree on everything. But to be able to live in your truth authentically, regardless of what your spirituality, your religions, your beliefs is, everyone should be grateful for that. Like, we are all protected. Race, background, sex, gender, whatever is all protected on the rights to love who you want to love and marry who you want to marry. So, kudos for that bill. Kudos to that law being passed because if it wouldn't been passed, we would have been right back to square one, having to go through all of this again. For what? Like, stop being
Yep,
childish and
waste of
let people live. Right. It was a waste of time. Let us live our life. We let y'all live your lives. Let us live ours.
Yep. And when she said y'all, she wasn't talking to me. I'm just a host.
Yes.
Now, we've talked about who Audrey Nicole was, the transition to you. Now, I want to talk about some of the things you have going on. Your introduction, I talked about you being an author. I talked about you being a model. I talked about you being an activist. Um, how did the author, actress, and model come about?
That's a really good question. So, I love to write, and that's one of my biggest passions. Even though I hated English class, I just love being able to be a storyteller, and I love poetry. So, the acting part is I do that daily. I act on a daily basis.
We
Like my
all do that.
personality, we all do. We do. We put on a mask and we portray this person or, this statute of someone we supposed to be. And so I was able to kind of do that in my normal life, and that kind of transition into the whole acting era, working on Life Changes, where I was the first real transitioned woman on the show. I've never seen a person actually transition on the show ever. Even like on big named stories, I've never seen someone transition in real life. So I was the first on a web series to transition in real life. I
Is that
was
family over everything or hopeless romantic?
That's actually Life Changes.
Oh,
I
okay.
Yeah, I transitioned on that show. I was Nico prior to transitioning, and then I came back into season 2 as Nicole. So being the very first character to ever transition on any streaming services is big to me. I was the first trans on Hopeless Romantic to be casted, and I play Riri in that show. Family Over Everything, I played Jade. I was kind of like the cashier type friend that knew everybody's business. And so through all of those acting experiences really built into who Audrey already was. It was just now being portrayed on screen. And so I took those life changes in my personal life and started to write my book. Now, the title of the book, Broken Through a Shattered Glass, was actually supposed to be a web series. It wasn't even supposed to be a book. Yeah. So the web series was supposed to be my past life, the things that I went through as RJ, scandals and relationship turmoils, and it was just a lot of like just juicy drama, right? Which actually happened in my real life that not a lot of people knew about. So I was like, I'm gonna write a web series. So that's what the title was, and I started writing it. I think I was on episode 2. I just got bored. So I was like, okay, I'm not gonna do that. So after that, I prayed on. I was like, okay, God, I'm getting ready to start my journey. If you want me to write a book or how do you want me to go about it, give me a sign. And he did. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to take my web series title and make it my book. And that's how Broken Through a Shadow Glass came about. And I finished in 3 months. I was just typing away because I'm like, in 28 years at the time, I didn't really have much life experience, right? So I didn't really have like a whole 300-page book to write about my beginning of my memoir. So I was like, I just want to give the audience just a little taste, a little insight of my life on how I came from RJ to Audrey. And so that's how the author came about. That's how the actress came about, and then Audrey as a whole came about.
So, what was it like stepping on those shattered glasses as you put them all into book form? Because you have to relive all of that again, putting it into the book.
Yes, it was refreshing, definitely refreshing, because the hurt and the pain, I was able to focus all of that into my book. I put everything that I wanted to say to people, I put everything that was on my heart to lay out. It's all in the book. So it was definitely a breath of fresh air.
So, it was
Really.
easier to manage this time around.
Yes, yes. I was definitely able to cope with all of that hurt and all of that pain that my immediate family has left on me, whether it was good or bad. I was able to channel that into my book, and I left it all on the table.
So, I want to assist you in communication and verbalization class. So, you said that Broken Through Shattered Glass was supposed to be a web series. I want you to change that and say that Broken Through Shattered Glass is going to be a web series
Okay.
instead of saying supposed to be, because the Harry Potter series, no one believed in it. Now the lady is one of the richest authors in the world.
Well, I appreciate that. I definitely
She
would.
can believe
I'll take that gym and yes, I like that. So yes, Broken Through a Shattered Glass, y'all, will be a web series. It may not be the web series it was supposed to be, but it's definitely gonna be the web series that it needs to be.
Finally, I want to mention that we see a lot of actors, models become hosts of talk shows, and some even step behind the screen. Last question I want to ask is, do you plan to follow that path?
Yes, I do. I've actually started co-writing on Life Changes for season two. So I will be able to co-direct on those episodes. So being able to be not only in front of the screen, but also behind the scenes is going to be one of the dopest and phenomenal experience for me because I'll be able to take the aesthetics of how I want the particular episodes that I've written for to project to the audience on how it was supposed to be portrayed in real time. And once you see it, you will be able to kind of see a little piece of my life into these episodes. So I'm super, super excited. And my dream that I am, spilling to fruition because it is going to come. I do want to own my own talk show. I want to have like one of those cozy, chill, relaxed environment to just be able to just talk and be able to just let out everything that people are afraid to talk about on daytime television and to be able to sit down and have conscious adult conversations that the world will be able to see where you are able to be comfortable and be able to be in a safe space to be seen and be heard, but also to get your point and other people's point across.
You want your format like hell? I don't know.
Basically. Yes.
Miss Audrey, I want to say that I appreciate you taking the time to stop by and talk with me today. If there's anything you need, let me know. I do look forward to speaking with you and working with you in the future.
Me too.
Please, if you have anything to promote, then take time to promote it. Promote what you have coming up. Let them know where they can find your book. Let them know where they can find your web series, your movies. The time is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Hell I Don't Know podcast for having your girl Audrey Nicole all the way from the Tobacco County state of North Carolina. To find me, you can find me on Facebook, Audrey Nicole. That is Audrey Nicole, Nicole. You can find me on Instagram and on TikTok. That will be three underscores Audrey Nicole. My book, Broken Through a Shattered Glass, is on Amazon. So you can download it on ebook and as well as get the paper copy. So you can just type in Broken Through a Shattered Glass. You can find all of my web series that I'm in all on YouTube. Type in Life Changes series. You will type in Hopeless Romantic web series. And you can also type in Family Over Everything. All three of those series and short films are all on YouTube. So definitely check us out. It is something you want to experience. It's any and everybody all are welcome. So check me out.
Miss Nicole, before we go, I want to tell you that always remember that people change the church all the time and nobody says nothing. And as you go forward, remember that the body is the church. But the one thing that's not changed is your soul. And so as you look at that, God looks at that, He still loves you. Uh, Never forget that your ultimate judge, your ultimate jury, is not sitting on this earth looking at you. He's waiting for you. Continue to follow God, continue to listen to God, continue to pray, and you will be blessed throughout all of your days. My closing quote: there is no gate, no lock, no bolt that you can set up the freedom of the mind. From Miss Virginia Woolf. I read that for y'all again because some of y'all may not have got that. There is no gate, no lock, no bolt that you can set upon the freedom of the mind. Miss Virginia Woolf. That is our time for today. I do appreciate you all stopping by. If you have any comments, concerns, anything like that, send them to tedyism@gmail.com. Please follow, subscribe, like, tell your buddies to follow, subscribe, like. If you want to be a sponsor of the show, let me know. I'll be glad to put you on. If you need somebody to do a voiceover, do some immaculate introductions for you or something of that nature, let me know. I'm available. Other than that, I will see you when I see you. Y'all have a good one.